Hi, welcome to another episode of Unfiltered. Today we have a special guest coming, a dear friend and one of the most active researchers in the field of vulnerability management, Yotam.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
Yotam is a head of research at Resilient, is a frequent speaker at various conferences, and today we're going to talk about what he finds interesting and try to poke his mind a bit. So Yotam, your story of how you became a researcher isn't the typical Israeli story. You were not at the intelligence corp and you were not taught cyber, so you're a bit of a self-made man. Can you share about your path?
Yeah, sure. So, as you said, in the army I was an infantry officer, so far from cyber. I just finished 7 months straight of military reserve duty with everything that's going on. So from there, college, electrical engineering, got into PayPal as a software engineer, dealing with vulnerability management, automation in the vulnerability management space.
So you really started at vulnerability management from the bottom, right?
Yeah, as a practitioner, for sure. But then at PayPal there was a really strong machine learning team, and I gained interest in this field, and I started step by step trying to learn and make the transition into more of a data science machine learning role. So as you said, mainly self-taught with the help of the teammates in the team, but mostly after my kids went to sleep, opening the laptop, sitting from 8 p.m. to 12 a.m. for like a year and a half, which my wife remembers, until I felt ready to make the transition. And yeah, I was luckily accepted to the threat sciences team in PayPal, doing data science and machine learning in the realms of insider threat and threat intelligence.
So that was the connection to cyber, right?
Yeah. That was kind of the initial connection to cyber, and then from there, Resilient, first as an individual contributor doing security research, and then leading the research team.
And where do you see yourself going forward? What do you find passionate? What do you like to do in this field of cyber?
So for me, I really like the community aspect, the engaging with the community, and obviously making an impact to tie between the insights that we find through our research and, okay, how do we make the industry see the value in these concepts, improve existing tooling, going back to the product with some of the insights and improving the product, etc.
So I have to say, I think that you are a very prominent voice in our cyber community, and really thank you for all your contribution, and really looking forward to see what will you do next.
Appreciate it.
So you've been really leading the research and the head of the research around vulnerability. And we are hearing a lot about overwhelming the NVD and that we can't keep up with the pace. What are your thoughts about what's happening in vulnerability management as of today?
I think obviously there are a lot of challenges, right? But for me, I think the main thing is the as you said, the exponential growth isn't going to slow down anytime soon. It's something. This is the reality that we're facing with. This is basically the playing field, right? But I think the challenge is how do we tie that exponential growth with current regulation practices, which are a bit behind.
What do you mean? Can you give me an example?
So, I don't know, take FedRAMP, for example, or ISO standards. A lot of the policies and regulations are still mandating that you fix or remediate every vulnerability with a CVSS score 4 and above, let's say, for example. But that doesn't really tie in with actual risk. It's not scalable, and it becomes even more unscalable as time goes by. But worst, in my opinion, it's not a reflection of actual risk. So the teams are spending their limited resources fixing vulnerabilities that might never be exploited. Just because the regulation says that they have to fix everything CVSS 4 and above. So that kind of this misalignment, I think, is the challenge that we, the vulnerability management space, we need to solve. And obviously, I think the key is mainly automation. Automation, intelligent prioritization, based on, it can be various layers of context. It can be reachability analysis, it can be configuration, it can be your network tool that tells you that this vulnerability isn't relevant because it's not accessible via the network. That's like the potential that I see.
And I also think that maybe we should like update our regulation to better reflect the challenges that we are seeing.
For sure, this is also something that I'm really passionate about. But as you know, these processes take time. But I think if the processes, and comes back to what I said earlier about connecting between the research and the field, if you'll show the regulator that you have a strong justification for why this vulnerability isn't relevant, then I think that will make a strong case for updating the regulation and bringing it closer to what the industry sees as the best practice.
So you've been working a lot with the Israeli community. You actually helped me with the SCAR forum, supply chain attack research. Why do you think we have so much cyber innovation in Israel?
I think it's kind of a wheel, right? Like an ecosystem that is evolved. There is a lot of cyber expertise, obviously, because of the military, because of the various startup in this field. And I think this helps the younger generation get into this field early. So since from high school, there are programs like Magshimim that takes teenagers from the peripheral area.
Yeah, we've talked about Magshimim with Omer last episode.
So that's like a great initiative, and it takes young kids at 17 years of age and lets them work at startup companies. We used it a lot in Resilient, and sometimes the impact that they bring is bigger than a college graduate.
Because of the passion, right?
Yeah, they come, they're super driven, super motivated, just wanting to learn. They're like a sponge at that age, right? So just soaking up knowledge. And yeah, for us, we saw a huge value in that. And just an anecdote, so the previous startup at PayPal, we had these teenagers, right? At 17, they spent a few months at PayPal doing software engineering, a bit of research, enlisted in the army, were released, 3-4 years later, and joined the next startup, the Resilient, as researchers after the army. So that's kind of the cycle that I think is super unique to the Israeli ecosystem.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, being a researcher, going to a lot of different conferences, what is the type of conferences that you relate to, that you feel at home at?
So I think obviously there's a lot, right? And in recent years I got to attend various conferences. I think for me, so far, the conference that resonated most was B-Sides Las Vegas.
Why B-Sides? Except Las Vegas. Everybody knows why Las Vegas.
Yeah, I don't know. Las Vegas, it can go either way, right? But for me, I think there's a nice balance there between it's not the formal, more kind of marketing-oriented black hat.
RSA, yeah.
And it's not the overwhelming kind of experience, or RSA, or kind of the overwhelming experience that you get from DEF CON, which is a bit...
it's a culture shock.
Yeah, it's a bit of a culture shock, at least, especially like in the first time. It's an acquired taste, but as the second year that I was there, I had a lot more fun, and I was able to absorb a lot more knowledge, etc. But yeah, B-Sides is kind of a nice blend in between. Great community, great conversations. So yeah, for me, so far that's my favorite.
Yeah, my favorites are actually quite similar. First conferences, talking with practitioners, researchers, a bit of executive, not a lot of sponsorship, but really about the content and the passion that people think and share and their pain and what do we want to do.
Yeah, to your point, I was just at VonCon, right, a few months back, and having a group of like-minded folks in the same room sharing their passion and exchanging ideas, that's kind of
that's the basic for community.
Exactly, that's the real value in conferences, aside from the talks, like the hallway talks.
Yeah, because if it's just about getting knowledge, you can get knowledge everywhere today. It's more about sharing your ideas, your thoughts, getting feedback, not just listening to a guy on YouTube.
Exactly.
It was great having you here. Really enjoyed our time. Looking forward to see you on the conference tour. See you next time in Vegas.